announcements.
Honourable members, I have an announcement to make regarding the order of business for the debate on public bills. I have received a request from the Honourable Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology for the debate on the Mauritius Commercial Bank Foundation Amendment Bill to be taken out of turn. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 17.2, I have acceded to the request and the Assembly will proceed accordingly. I thank you.
Those papers have been laid. Questions?
Leader of the Opposition.
Honourable Mr. Speaker, the question addressed to the Minister, to the Honourable Minister of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, whether in regard to cases of homicide perpetrated by intimate partners, she will state the number thereof for calendar year 2022 and from 1st January 2023 to date, indicating the number thereof having a history of domestic violence previously reported to the authorities under the Protection from Domestic Violence Act.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your very kind permission, I'd like at the outset to express my deepest sympathy to the victims of domestic violence and their families. It is always painful when domestic violence cases result in death. Un cas de violence domestique est toujours un cas de trop. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Commissioner of Police that during the calendar year 2022, 7 cases of homicide by intimate partners have been reported, out of which only 1 case had a history of domestic violence. For the period of January 2023 to October 2023, out of a total of 4 reported cases, 1 had a history of domestic violence. Mr. Speaker, sir, these cases are still under investigation by the police. According to estimates published in 2021 by the World Health Organization, globally, around 1 in 3 women worldwide have been subjected to either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence during their lifetime. Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry is implementing a series of measures in terms of legislative framework, policies, procedures, and awareness campaigns, amongst others, to address the problem of domestic violence. On 25th of November 2020, the mobile application L'Espoir was launched as a rapid response system to victims of gender-based violence. In line with international experiences, such mobile app serves to increase victim safety by giving priority and enhance access to support services at the touch of a button for those at great risk. The main specificities of the app, Mr. Speaker, sir, are rapid response by the police through a geo-localization feature, an information platform for all victims of gender-based violence to feel secure, protected, and taken care of by all concerned authorities in order to maintain a stable and a healthy life. This application was developed by the Prime Minister's Office in collaboration with the UNDP and has been entrusted to my ministry. Since its launching, as at 31st of October this year, 3,351 panic alerts have been recorded on the mobile application. Mr. Speaker, sir, awareness-raising campaigns are equally important to sensitize the public at large on the scourge of domestic violence and to inform them on the services available. My ministry also conducts awareness-raising campaigns using a wide network of social welfare centers, women's centers, and community centers. For a greater impact, my ministry is making use of innovative information, education, and communication strategies. For example, broadcasting of clips on NBC TV, social media, radio, and other platforms. The public is also encouraged through various awareness campaigns to report cases of domestic violence. In addition, my ministry has hotline 139, which is toll-free and accessible on a 24/7 basis to enable reporting of cases. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am further informed that as at 30th of October this year, awareness campaigns on gender-based violence were conducted at Dr. A.G. Jitu Hospital, Victoria Hospital, Dr. Bruno Chong Hospital, Nehru Hospital, and SSRN Hospital, with 88 medical personnel being reached. Moreover, since 2019, my ministry is collaborating with the Prime Minister's Office through the Ensemble avec CSU program to conduct weekly awareness campaigns at community level throughout the island. As a matter of fact, from December last year to May this year, the Family Welfare Protection Unit of my ministry has participated in 16 CSU programs, Ensemble avec CSU of the Citizen Support Unit. For the period June of this year to the 6th of October this year, 43 Ensemble avec CSU programs were attended by officers of the Family Welfare Protection Unit of my ministry, including programs held in 7 CAB offices in parallel during last Wednesdays of every month. Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Strategy and Action Plan for the Elimination of Gender-Based Violence 2020-2024 was launched by the Honourable Prime Minister on 25th of November 2020. It is the blueprint outlining a coordinated multi-sectoral response for the prevention, response and service delivery towards victims and survivors of gender-based violence. The High-Level Committee on the Elimination of Gender-Based Violence is chaired by the Honourable Prime Minister himself. It comprises sectoral ministers who oversee overall implementation and provide strategic oversight. At the 5th High-Level Committee held in November 2022, decision was taken to enlist the services of Mr. Jason Meyer, the international consultant, to conduct a midterm review exercise to ensure that the implementation of the National Strategy and Action Plan is on the right track and whether there is need to re-strategize. At the 6th High-Level Committee held in May this year, the said consultant presented his midterm review report. He acknowledged that progress has been made in the implementation of the plan, but he also cautioned on the fact that progress does not necessarily equate to success. He highlighted the areas where improvement was needed, which by 2024 has to be addressed. In his presentation, Mr. Speaker, sir, he highlighted the following areas for improvement: a baseline gender-based violence data to be prioritized, the continuation of capacity building initiatives to strengthen the shared understanding on gender-based violence, the evaluation of existing and planned programs, learning and adapting from these findings, and embedding a risk management approach to dealing with perpetrators of domestic violence. Mr. Speaker, sir, the next High-Level Committee is scheduled for the 23rd of November this year to report on the status on the implementation of all the recommendations made in the midterm review. My ministry has also signed an MOU with the Mauritius Research Institute Council to come up with a gender-based violence observatory. I am informed that the website and sensitization clips have already been worked out and will be launched shortly. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the financial year 2022-2023, provision was made for the setting up of a data repository for the collection of disaggregated data on domestic violence cases. In this connection, my ministry has also started consultation with the Ministry of Information Technology, Communication and Innovation and the Mauritius Emerging Technologies Council for the setting up of the data repository for the harmonization of data among all key stakeholders. This tool, Mr. Speaker, sir, will be critical to drive policy decision action plans. Mr. Speaker, sir, beside preventive measures, it is crucial to reinforce the legislative framework to ensure better protection of victims and hold perpetrators accountable for their acts. The Protection from Domestic Violence Act, which was enacted in the year 1997 to protect spouses from domestic violence, has been amended in 2004, 2007, 2011, and in 2016. Mr. Speaker, sir, with societal change, the nature of cases of domestic violence have evolved over the years. Therefore, it is imperative to come up with a new legislation to frame the entire issue of domestic violence. In this perspective, government approval was obtained in July 2023 to repeal the Protection from Domestic Violence Act and come up with a new piece of legislation to broaden the scope of the law regarding issues such as marital rape, perpetrator rehabilitation, only to name a few. In this respect, the new Domestic Abuse Bill is currently under preparation. Drafting instructions have already been given to the Attorney General's office on the 29th of August this year for the new legislation. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to make a strong appeal to all the stakeholders to join hands together in combating the scourge of domestic violence.
Mr. Speaker, sir, firstly, in asking this PNQ, my thoughts are very much with the thousands of courageous ladies who have reported cases of domestic violence, and even greater number who suffer in silence. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister will know, as she has said, that collection of information is crucial in combating this scourge. I have read all the articles in the press. I have spoken to at least 3 families, and 90% of the cases have been reported previously to either the police or to your own ministry. Now, surely you have access, or your ministry has access to these press reports, and did you or did you not, at the time of the crimes being committed, contact the families and confirm or not the veracity of the press reports? And I will table at the end of the session a copy of each press report, but it's clearly stated that there will be numerous cases were reported to the police.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Leader of Opposition will appreciate that I do not right now have specific cases and details thereof. So what I need to reassure the House and the population at large, Mr. Speaker, sir, is whenever the Ministry is aware of a case of domestic violence, the case is attended to. There is an entire structure, there are protocols that are adhered to, there are follow-ups that are maintained. We have a wide array of services that we offer to victims of domestic violence, Mr. Speaker, sir, and one of them being the follow-up that is maintained by family welfare protection officers of my ministry.
Honourable Minister, which of these 2 cases were reported to you mentioned one in every year had been reported to the police. Which case, according to you, had been reported, please?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the cases that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is referring to, first of all, they're still under investigation. The case, the most recent case that he is making reference to, was not known to my ministry, Mr. Speaker, sir. Like I said, and I reiterate, every case that is known to my ministry by any way, whether it is by way through a hotline, by l'espoir, through the police, through anonymous reporting, every case is attended to. Therefore, it is misleading to say that the ministry was aware of the case and not taken appropriate action towards the case, Mr. Speaker, sir.
It's taken 15 minutes to tell us that collection of information is important. Cases occur, people say it's reported to the police and to her ministry, and nobody has any follow-up, and she refuses, rightly so, to tell us which of the 2 cases have actually been reported, because the rest of the families would be up in arms against the government, I can assure you. I'd like to ask the Minister, Honourable Mr. Speaker, this question. The number of cases reported have jumped sky high. We are talking about police and FPU, 8,600 in 2022, and 7,000 this year to date. These are your figures, which are also given in the radio by your employee, your colleague, recently. But would you be surprised, Mr. Speaker, that only 234 protection orders were issued, according to Mauritius statistics? Only 234 protection orders were issued against these thousands in 2022, compared to nearly 500 protection orders issued in 2016, the last time that we were in government. In 2016, 500 protection orders, despite lower reporting and Last year, 2022, only 234. Why has the number, this is a fact now, why, and I'll say a clear question, why has the number of protection orders issued fallen dramatically by more than half?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm very happy to see the Leader of Opposition acknowledging that our sensitization campaigns are bringing the results that we seek, which is a rise in the number of reported cases. When we talk about the spike in the number of reported cases, we are talking about tangible results of these awareness campaigns, of all the measures being undertaken by government. Allow me to answer, Leader of Opposition. Mr. Speaker, sir. The rise, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the number of reported cases is testimony that we are able to now break the glass ceiling, that our victims who are undergoing abuse are now coming forward to report cases of abuse. So to me, it is a theory of glass, half glass full, half empty. So that can explain the rise in number. Let me answer your question, Mr. Speaker, sir. When it comes to protection orders, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have to understand that most of the victims of domestic violence happen to be adults. Adults have the right of self-determination. We cannot impose an adult to put a charge or enter a statement at the level of the police station or press charges. The protection order is issued by a court of law. If the victim is unwilling to obtain a protection order, in so many cases we come across that, this is where we reinforce our awareness campaign. This is where we reinforce our sensitization about their rights. So the number of protection orders, Mr. Speaker, sir, the one that the Leader of Opposition is making reference to, it cannot be forced upon the victim. I hope that this is quite clear.
Mr. Speaker, despite what the Minister is saying, her own report, National Gender Policy 2020, this is what it says at page 24, she may have forgotten. Domestic and intimate partner violence has been on the increase in the recent years. It's not just a question of reporting. Your own report says that it is on the increase. So it's good that we all open our eyes. As for the number of protection orders falling dramatically, is the Minister saying that somehow officers of her ministry are now unable to encourage victims of violence to come forward to the courts and ask for protection? Is that what you're saying? They were more successful before and now much less successful? This is what you're saying?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will repeat it. Because of reported cases, increase in the number that you see that is being recorded as reported is precisely because the women are more aware of their rights and because all the measures taken by government, by this government, are yielding tangible results. I have, in my main reply, Mr. Speaker, sir, spoken about the high-level committee chaired by the Prime Minister. There has never in the history been such a commitment at the highest level of governance to combat gender-based violence. This is a high-level committee. I mean, the question pertains to homicide leading to death from such and such period. Mr. Speaker, sir, domestic violence is not a new feature. It is not a new societal scourge. It has existed. And I would like to make an appeal to the Leader of Opposition to try not to mystify the entire problem, shrouding it according to social status. We at the ministry, the police will confirm, we have seen perpetrators being lawyers, doctors, journalists. So it is not limited to a certain social status. It is a nationwide, it is an international problem. And the results of our measures being taken, the steps being taken by this government, qui depuis 2005 jusqu'à 2014 violence domestique, where was the commitment then? Where was the commitment by previous government to combat this scourge? The problem, let me finish. The problem of domestic violence, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not limited to the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare. It has never been. And the setting up of the high-level committee chaired by the Prime Minister himself is testimony enough to demonstrate that this problem is being tackled from the root. The high-level committee comprises of no less than 11 line ministries with a very, very diligent reporting system and output indicators that show very clearly that we are inching forward and we are making progress when it comes to combating. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, if you'll allow me, the domestic abuse issue that is being discussed today, it is not the problem of only the government or the Ministry of Gender Equality or the Minister of Gender Equality. It is everybody's problem. And the solution should be everybody's as well.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister is answering lengthy replies because she cannot deal with the facts. And the facts is her own ministry said that the domestic violence is increasing and it is a great domestic problem. This is her own report. Now, Mr. Speaker, as far as results are concerned, I had a look at the number of cases lodged under the Domestic Protection Act. Okay, the number of cases, Mr. Speaker. Would you be surprised, you will not be surprised, Mr. Speaker, that the number of cases lodged in 2016 were 2,300. And this has fallen to 1,300, 1,000 less cases lodged in 2022 than in 2016, many years ago. And under her stewardship, the number of cases lodged has steadily fallen. So not only more cases are being reported because of drugs, alcohol, it's on the abuse, it's on the increase. Everybody in Mauritius knows that. You cannot deny it, not just the reporting, but the number of cases are increasing, one. Secondly, no protection order. Thirdly, 1,000 cases less lodged in 1 year. The minister should be ashamed. She should not reply in Creole as well. And no swearing, please. No swearing and no Creole.
What that question is?
The question is, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, why has the number of cases lodged fallen by 1,000 annually? Why?
No,
straight question.
No, you said no swearing.
No, I said no swearing, yes, and no speaking in Creole. I did say that, yes.
No,
is something wrong with that?
That was only a little piece.
Yes, only a little piece.
Minister?
Ignore it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, again, the application for a protection order rests on the victim, Mr. Speaker, sir. The officers of my ministry, the police officers for that matter, cannot force a victim to lodge a complaint. I think I have made that extremely clear in my initial answer.
Mr. Speaker, she may not be aware of the practice in the UK where even if a victim wants to not to proceed with the case, provided she has signs of violence on her, the police refuse to relent and to yes. Something I said wrong?
Allow me.
Yes.
Me. Your question is related under the Protection from Domestic Violence Act, yes, which is local. Yes. You are referring to...
Of course, because if we don't... But she has taken... Excuse me, Mr. Speaker, I don't understand. Because she herself has taken Mr. Mark Tyler from Australia.
Put a question.
Okay, she has taken Mr. Mark Tyler from Australia. So I'm not allowed to mention UK. She can mention Australia. Now, come on, Mr. Speaker. Be reasonable. Be reasonable. She mentions Australia, I cannot mention UK.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, you listen, I'm on my feet.
I'm listening.
When you put a question, you don't have the right to refer because your question is related to a specific act, Domestic Violence Act, which is local act.
Mr. Speaker.
Wait, you are going lengthy in your statements and declarations. I ask you to put a specific question related to this Domestic Violence Act. Go ahead.
You will realize that she opened the debate when she talked about everything else apart from murders. So I'm sure you have listened to that. Now, this is the question. Question is, the police, her statement is the police cannot force people. I'm telling her that internationally, police refuse to relent on cases where there are specific signs of violence, and I'm asking her whether she should not insist that the police should proceed whatever pressure the victim may be under in her household. That is the question. Is it a valid question? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir,
Never too late to learn.
Mr. Speaker, sir,
You answer.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I can reassure the House and the Leader of the Opposition that
You answer.
any victim that is at the level of the police station is accompanied by a team comprising of family welfare protection officers or psychologists, eventually will, upon issuing of a form, will undergo a medical checkup. So what I'm trying to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that according to the protocol that my ministry and the Brigade pour la Protection de la Famille have already signed and applied, we work together. But at the end of the day, as much as we can encourage the victim to lodge a case, as much as we can, that the only one thing that we cannot do is to force the victim to lodge a complaint. I think the Honourable Leader of the Opposition can appreciate what I'm saying.
The public will appreciate that you are much less successful encouraging people than previous persons who are in the same post that you are at. I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister whether, in fact, what is the matter now? What is the matter now?
Leader of the
Yes.
You can't make insinuations. You can't compare a minister with this government, the other government. Don't do that. Apologize for that.
And she compared us to before.
Apologize for that.
She compared to 2004 to 2016. Why did you not raise it?
You are talking
Why
about
did you not raise
minister.
it when she said 2004 to
You are
2016?
talking about minister.
I'm talking about government, not minister. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister, with your kind permission, let me do my constitutional duty, please.
I am doing my
Yes, let me do my constitutional
The House of
duty.
Parliament is-
I've been appointed under this constitution to ask a PNQ. Please let me get on with it.
I am
Yes,
regulating the business
I
of the
have a
House.
constitutional duty to ask this question to the Honourable Minister.
And
Now,
time is
I'd like
running.
to
You are not putting questions.
I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister, following my constitutional duty, to ask a PNQ every Tuesday. I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister, why is it that we know that in fact deaths occur, murders occur, because victims go back to the household and they are killed by their husband many times like this. Only women have died, Mr. Speaker. Now, I'm trying to be calm, you see. Now, the problem is on the question of occupation orders, where in fact the husband is told to go away and to leave the house. Only two, Honourable Minister, occupation orders were issued in the whole year 2022. This is about a third and less than had been issued in previous years. There's an issue, you see, of occupation orders. Occupation orders were introduced in law in 2016 by a PMSD minister. Now, why is it that under this government, I didn't say minister, this government, you will appreciate, this government, there's only been 2 occupation orders issued, and I'm told by magistrates that the major reason is that your ministry, your officers that accompany the persons, do not ask for occupation orders.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am not very sure what your Honourable Leader of Opposition is told and what not. Once again, it has to be noted and made clear that occupation orders are issued by a court of law. It is issued based on a report provided by a panoply of services, be it psychosocial report, medical social worker report, police report. It is issued by a court of law. Therefore, it is very inaccurate for the Leader of Opposition to come and say that because our officers are not making the requests for protection orders. This is completely misleading, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Speaker, quite clear that the Honourable Minister doesn't know that her ministry needs to ask for this, and it is for the magistrate to accept or refuse. The magistrate himself doesn't know enough of the case to ask for an occupation or to give an occupation order when her ministry has failed to ask for it. Now, Mr. Speaker, I come to other issues because it's a fascinating subject which really affects human rights of the majority of our population, which are women. Mr. Speaker, as far as we know, shelters. There have been 4 shelters for yonks, about 100 places for both women and children. So about 60 women also for all these hundreds of thousands of cases. Now, these shelters are often full. Most of the time they are full. I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister what emergency procedure do you have in place when, as is often the case, shelters are full and battered women cannot access these shelters? What do you do with them? Do you put them in a hotel? Do you put them in a hostel? What do you do with these women who do not have, maybe you'll get a piece of paper in a moment, with these women who are unable to find places in shelters?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I do not need the permission of the Leader of the Opposition to receive a piece of paper. Thank you. I would like to reassure the Leader of the Opposition and the House that our shelters for victims of violence are, he needs to substantiate what he has just said. They are being full, and I don't know where you got the statistics from, but as far as I am informed, victims who need to be placed in shelter and agree to be placed in such institutions are placed in those institutions.
May I ask the Minister whether...
Time is over.
So you've just got my signature?
Time is over. Honourable members, the table has been advised. Please. Are you fighting the chair? Are you? Time is over. Honourable members, the table has been advised that PQ B 1369 will be replied by the Honourable Prime Minister, time permitting. Prime Minister's question time. Honourable 2.
B 1316.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the House will recall that following his defeat at the 2019 general election, Mr. Surendra Dayal had challenged, with the full support of the opposition parties, namely the Mauritius Labour Party, the Mouvement Militant Mauricien, and the Parti Mauricien Social-Démocrate, by way of an election petition before the Supreme Court, the election of the three candidates of constituency number 8 in the said general election, and prayed for their election to be declared invalid, null, and void on ground of treating, bribery, undue influence, illegal practice, and any other valid reason. Listen before you speak of macaroni. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Order.
Listen, don't écoutez. Tu n'as pas écouter. Privy Council, donne-toi claque, tu n'as pas écouter. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Supreme Court, in its findings, held that the respondents had no intention to corruptly treat the old age pensioners attending the event at the Swami Vivekananda International Conference Center. The Supreme Court went on to conclude that they found no merit in Mr. Dayal's allegation that the respondents had committed an act of treating in breach of Section 64(2) of the Representation of the People Act. Regarding the allegation of bribery through the implementation of the PRB report, an increase in basic retirement pension, the Supreme Court held that, and I quote, "They were electoral promises contained in electoral manifestos and made in the course of normal electoral campaigning. They were no more, no less than a statement of intention of a future eventual government," unquote. The Supreme Court therefore came to the conclusion that the proposals concerning the PRB report, which were made by l'Alliance Mauricien and not by respondent number 1 as an individual candidate, did not constitute acts of bribery. Regarding the issue of basic retirement pension, the Supreme Court likewise held that the announcement in the increase of the basic retirement pension did not constitute an act of bribery. The Supreme Court therefore concluded that it was an electoral promise contained in an electoral manifesto and was done in the course of normal electoral campaigning. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council has also underlined the following central factual findings of the Supreme Court in relation to the announcement for the increase in the basic retirement pension. And I quote, "In terms of a candidate's duty under the ESC's Code of Conduct to abstain from resorting to electoral promises that were untrue and unrealizable, it was an admitted fact that when l'Alliance Mauritienne formed the new government, the proposal to increase the BRP to 9,000 rupees as from December 2019 had been effected," unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is also apposite for me to mention the observations of the Supreme Court with regard to the accusation of undue influence. In fact, the Supreme Court concluded that, and I quote, "It is hard to see how the facts relied upon by the petitioner, namely, 1, the trumpeting by the MBC of the basic retirement pension announcement, 2, the appointment of the Director General and board members of the MBC by respondent number 1 and their alleged role in the running of the MBC, and 3, the ESC communiqué, could be said to amount to undue influence by fraudulent contrivance. The petitioner has been unable to establish that there was intentional deception or false and material misrepresentation. We find that the petitioner has failed to establish that the respondent by themselves or by another person on their behalf have exercised undue influence by fraudulent contrivance. This ground must accordingly fail," unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Supreme Court finally concluded that the respondents' election at the 2019 general election should not be avoided by reason of bribery, treating, or undue influence. The petition was accordingly dismissed by the Supreme Court with costs. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the House is also aware, the opposition, being dissatisfied with the judgment of the Supreme Court, subsequently appealed to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council has, in its judgment delivered on 16th October 2023, endorsed all the findings and conclusions of the Supreme Court and unanimously dismissed on all grounds the appeal lodged by Mr. Dayal. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is apposite for me to highlight the following pertinent findings of the Privy Council judgment. And I quote, "The board points in particular to the following features that support the Supreme Court's conclusion. 1, the proposals were made in open and public, allowing criticism and debate. 2, the proposals had been the subject of prior political debate and carried transparent underlying reasoning. 3, the BRP and the PRB report proposals related to manifesto pledges. 4, the proposals related to important and sensitive topics of public interest. 5, the subject matter of the proposals was also the subject of proposals by other candidates or political parties. 6. The proposals were generic, of nationwide impact, not limited to members of the constituency. 7. There were several weeks between the proposals and the polling day, and over a month between the SBICC event and polling day. 8. The proposed benefit was not contingent on particular individuals voting in a certain way. 9. There was no quid pro quo and or element of bargaining between candidate and voter. 10. There was no question of private funding behind the proposals. 11. Implementation of the proposal was contingent on future political events, including parliamentary vote. 12. There was no finding that the proposals were unreasonable and that they carried any element of deception and or extreme exaggeration, unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council further observed that, and I quote, the literal and mechanistic approach advocated for Mr. Dayal would also lead to absurd results against which there is an interpretive presumption. It would make normal political campaigning in the run-up to an election impossible and undermine the constitutional principle of free and fair elections. It would have the effect that a candidate could never campaign on a general policy relating, for example, to taxation or social welfare, where the impact would be to confer a financial benefit on a subset of electors. Many measures announced in political meetings or party manifestos have financial implications for particular groups of the electoral community, unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Privy Council held that the Supreme Court had made clear findings of fact with which there was no basis for appellate interference. Mr. Speaker, sir, while endorsing the findings and conclusions of the Supreme Court over the alleged act of bribery surrounding the increase in basic retirement pension and treating at the SBICC event, the Privy Council has further observed that, and I quote, but in any event, a fair reading of Mr. Jugnauth's speech makes it clear that he was not making a personal commitment to provide the financial benefit in question, which he was not in a position to give in any event, but rather a commitment on behalf of his party, the l'Alliance Mauritienne. See, for example, the following extracts from his speech, and I quote, they quote again from my speech: in our next mandate, we will double your pension, we will bring it to 13,500 rupees. You know, when I give my words, as we had given our word in 2014, you know I'm a man of my word, we will keep our promise. The SBICC event was, however, more than a month away from polling day. In any event, any inferences to be drawn from the timing of the event cannot assist him in circumstances where it was the Ministry of Social Security and not any of the first to third respondents which provided the food, drink, and transport. Further, given that this was an annual celebration with nothing unsurprising or untoward about any of its arrangements, attended by voters from all over Mauritius and not just the constituency, with no evidence that any voter was in fact corrupted, the Supreme Court was fully entitled to conclude that there was no basis for any finding of illegal treating. Given the Supreme Court's findings of fact, there is only one possible conclusion in relation to treating, namely that none of the respondents could be said to be guilty of unlawful treating for the purpose of Section 64(2) as a result of the provision of food, drink, or transport at the SBICC event, unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, the decision of the Privy Council in this particular case and the dismissal of other election petitions by the Supreme Court or their voluntary withdrawal by the petitioners themselves have put an end, well, hopefully, to the sinister campaign orchestrated by this opposition which, en très mauvais perdant, had been making all sorts of unfounded allegations and accusations about bribery, treating, election fraud, and rigging, and whatnot, following their defeat at the last general election. This opposition instigated controversy and protests in the country contesting the election, which all the regional and international election observer missions had concluded to be free and fair. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must say that our electoral system, which is inclusive, transparent, and responsive to the concerns of all stakeholders, has stood the test of time and served the country well by contributing to its social and political stability. This system has, prior to the 2019 general election, garnered widespread satisfaction among all stakeholders involved in the electoral process and the citizens at large. International observers, such as the African Union, SADC, the Electoral Commission Forum of SADC, and the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, all have consistently provided favorable assessments and reports, including for the 2019 general election. Mr. Speaker, sir, but what is most regrettable in their action is the damage they have done to the reputation of our electoral management bodies and of the country as a whole. They made unsubstantiated allegations and spread rumors, casting aspersion persistently on the integrity and reputation of the Electoral Supervisory Commission and the Electoral Commissioner, whose competence and professionalism in electoral matters have always been recognized and acknowledged both locally and internationally. The former Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party dared to even attack the judiciary when he alleged that a judge had been meeting a minister with regard to his election petition. Mr. Speaker, sir, their accusations also called into question the integrity of the 13,400 public officers whose services had been retained by the Office of the Electoral Commissioner for the conduct of the 2019 general election, including the returning officers and deputy returning officers who hold very senior positions at the judiciary, the Attorney General's office, and the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. These officers, along with all election staff, are appointed by the Public Service Commission on the recommendation of the Electoral Supervisory Commission. I must also add that all the election staff are appointed following an exercise for expression of interest by way of a circular issued by the Office of the Electoral Commissioner. Mr. Speaker, sir, we on this side of the House, we have always had great trust and confidence in our electoral management bodies, which are among the most important pillars of our democracy. Without underestimating the harm which had been caused to these institutions' reputation and morale of its officers, we are convinced that the dismissal of the electoral petitions and the observations made by the Privy Council in the judgment in question will clear all the doubts and confusion that have been instilled in the minds of the people by this opposition about the credibility of elections in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Office of the Electoral Commissioner has always adhered to best practices and standards, and all the processes are subject to close scrutiny. It is also noteworthy that for the 2019 general elections, a significant number of polling and counting agents were deployed. I am informed that in fact there were 8,106 polling agents and 4,851 counting agents of all parties, including the opposition parties, deployed for that election. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must also underline the fact that the whole exercise for voters' registration and the conduct of elections are supervised by the Electoral Supervisory Commission in line with its mandate under the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are confident that the Electoral Supervisory Commission and the Office of the Electoral Commissioner will continue to demonstrate their commitment to organize transparent and credible elections in the future and take all necessary measures provided for in the legislation to uphold the integrity of the electoral process. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to expenses incurred by government in relation to this Privy Council case, I am informed that as at to date, the Office of the Electoral Commissioner has disbursed an amount of £21,235 representing fees for counsel, attorney, and filing fees. An amount of £91,605.71, comprising mainly of fees for counsel and attorney and other administrative costs, remains to be paid by the Office of the Electoral Commissioner. Moreover, an additional amount of £1,765 representing attorney fees and filing fees is being paid by the Attorney General's Office. This will bring the total to £114,605.71 for the Office of the Electoral Commissioner only. This is equivalent to around 6,300,000 rupees. In addition, an amount of 158,345 rupees has been disbursed by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development to meet the cost for the attendance of a law officers from the Attorney General's office at the Privy Council on behalf of the Office of the Electoral Commissioner in connection with this case. I am also informed that an amount of 2,952,500 rupees has been disbursed by the Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation in terms of legal fees in connection with this appeal case. Further claims are expected by the embassy for this same case. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to expenses to be incurred by the Electoral Supervisory Commission, I am informed that invoices relating to fees for counsel and attorney have not been received yet. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a matter of regret that, in spite of the solid reputation enjoyed by our electoral management bodies, both locally and internationally, the opposition chose to tarnish the image of these institutions by making vile attacks on the person of the Electoral Commissioner and the members of the Electoral Supervisory Commission, and even going to the extent of asking for their resignation. Their actions seriously undermine public trust and confidence in these institutions, which are vital for our democracy. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must here point out that in the Democracy Index 2022, published by the Economist Intelligence Unit, Mauritius was ranked 21st out of 167 countries as a full democracy, with an overall score of 8.14 out of 10 points. Mauritius retained its position as the leader in democracy in Africa, as it is the only country and nation in sub-Saharan Africa and the entire region to top the list in this category. In fact, Mauritius is positioned in the same league as the member countries of the G20, namely Australia, Canada, Germany, Japan, and the United Kingdom, ranked in the top 20. It is also noteworthy that a total of 5 essential criteria were considered for the ranking of Mauritius as full democracy, namely the electoral process and pluralism, the functioning of government, the political participation, political culture, and civil liberties. Mr. Speaker, sir, the fate of the election petitions and the decision of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in this latest appeal case have not only proved the opposition wrong, but also exposed their bad faith. It is, unfortunately, the taxpayer who will have to bear the brunt of such unnecessary and wasteful expenditure. I must add that these payments, I must add, Mr. Speaker, sir, that these payments exclude the expenses incurred or to be incurred in connection with the election petitions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In his reply, the Honourable Prime Minister mentioned about the huge amount to be incurred by the government for this appeal. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether there has been any order by the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council as to cost?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to order as to costs, I am informed that following the judgment in this appeal case, a draft order was circulated by the Privy Council among the parties, ordering Mr. Dayal to pay the respondents' costs and for the amount of those costs to be assessed if not agreed upon. The parties had to give their views thereon by 24th of October 2023. However, on 24th October 2023, being the deadline date, Mr. Dayal's representatives wrote to the Privy Council informing that they did not agree with the cost order. La honte. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. It's a shame. The issue will now be determined by the Privy Council. The reply of the Privy Council on the cost issue is being awaited. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think at least, si cette opposition avait un peu de dignité, parce qu'ils ont contesté à travers plusieurs pétitions en Cour suprême ici, et le seul cas qui est allé au Privy Council, s'ils avaient un peu d'amour propre, ils auraient pu quand même accéder à la requête, au draft qui a été circulé par le Privy Council pour demander aux parties de payer les frais. Non, ils objectent, ils ne veulent pas payer les frais.
Time is over.
Thank you, Mr.
Time is over. I am announcing the following questions have been withdrawn. B1319, B1321, B1322, B1325, B1328, B1329, B1331, B1369. Question to ministers. Honorable Richard Duval.
Yes, B1332.
Mr. Speaker, in the budget speech 2023-2024, the income threshold for registration under the National Database for Vulnerable People was reviewed from 4,000 to 4,600 for an adult and from 2,000 to 3,220 for a child. With the announcements of this new income threshold, a new national database for eligible households has had to be compiled. Households earning a monthly income above 14,650 and not exceeding 18,860 are now eligible for support under the National Database for Vulnerable People. With regards to Part A of the question, the House may wish to note that the list of households under the National Database for Vulnerable People is compiled on a district-wise and not on a constituency-wise basis. I'm informed by the SRM unit that the total number of households with a monthly income above 14,650 and not exceeding 18,860 found eligible under the National Database for Vulnerable People as from 1st July 2023 to date is 279. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm tabling the 279 eligible households. With regards to Part B of the question, I'm informed that the number of applications which have not been found eligible under the same national database from 1st July 2023 to date is 335. Regarding Part C of the question, I'm informed by the National Social Inclusion Foundation that under the National Program for Eligible Vulnerable People on the National Database, comprehensive support will be provided to effectively assessing and addressing the vulnerabilities, challenges, and needs of the applicants and connecting beneficiaries to public institutions and NGO support services through a coordinated referral system. I wish to inform the House that the national program will be implemented by NCIF through NGOs having the necessary experience in providing social support and accompanying the vulnerable families. The implementation of this program will be carried out in collaboration with the different ministries dealing with vulnerable people, the Citizen Support Unit, the Mauritius Institute of Training and Development, the Human Resource Development Council. As at date, the NCIF has already constituted a pool of field workers from NGOs who have been provided with necessary training.
Thank you. Can the Honourable Minister state what supporting measures the Ministry has put in place to accompany those families whose request has been rejected and also those people suffering from price raise and who are struggling to have a decent living?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if their applications have been rejected, so it means that they will not be on the national database for vulnerable people. But for those who are on the system, so I'm talking of the SRM beneficiaries and those who are on the national database for vulnerable people, so there is a proper mechanism which has been put in place to act effectively and also to provide the necessary in-kind support to those who are on the system. We have issued a press communiqué. We have now a data of the families who need support. This has already been compiled. Now officers and will have to visit each household individually for the need assessment, understanding what are their needs and issues, and then provide them with the necessary support. But with regards to those who are not on the system, I'm sorry, we can't do much because as the system is, we are dealing with people who are on the SRM register and people who are on the national database for vulnerable groups.
Madame la ministre, peut-elle considérer que les dossiers qui sont à l'étude et que provision a été faite et seront faites afin que ces personnes puissent entre-temps survivre avec une allocation temporaire, si elle peut considérer?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I must say that since we are here, since 2014, a lot of measures have been taken to help those who are living in difficult situations. So, as you know, we have set up a plan Marshall to give support to those who are on the SRM, but we do realize that there is a system which has to be put in place. We are offering financial support, educational support, helping as much as we can provide housing, and at the same time training to those who are in need to make sure that they do get the necessary support to stand on their feet again and be integrated in society.
Next question.
B1333.
Mr. Speaker, so I'm informed that in 2019, the number of suicides committed was 117, 126 in 2020, 132 in 2021, 106 in 2022, and as of September 2023, 105 suicides have been recorded. With your permission, I am tabling the information pertaining to Part A of the question. With regard to Part B of the question, the common risk factors include the following: mental health conditions such as depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia can increase the risk of suicide. Substance abuse, namely alcohol and drugs, previous suicide, a family history of suicide, access to lethal means, that is, easy access to firearms, medications, or other lethal means can heighten the risk. Social isolation, chronic physical illness, relationship problems, job or financial stress, legal or criminal issues, and stigma and barriers. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards to part C of the question, the House may wish to note that this national suicide prevention strategy includes assessment and data collection, which are already being done on prevalence and causes of suicide. This includes demographics, risk factors, and common methods. Moreover, public awareness and education are being carried out to reduce stigma around mental health issues and signs of distress. Furthermore, a mental health action plan 2023-2027 is currently being elaborated by my ministry. This action plan provides for raising awareness on mental health, well-being issues and their impact, help identify suicidal attempts, caters for training of health professionals and educators on suicidal warnings, and the setting up of a hotline to listen and support people at risk of suicide.
Monsieur le Président, il est important d'assurer que les personnes vulnérables reçoivent les soins dont elles ont besoin, surtout avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. Et dans cette optique, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire de quelle manière sont prises en charge les personnes qui ont déjà fait une tentative de suicide, et s'il peut aussi nous dire où est-ce qu'une personne en crise suicidaire et souffrance psychologique peut trouver de l'aide?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as I've stated, on the risk factors, the common risk factors of suicide, including mental health conditions. So it means that healthcare professionals are taking care on the preventive aspect of suicide, especially based on these risk factors. Substance abuse, this is also an important part. It's very difficult to get access to these people who are substance abuse, but yet through campaign, we are conducting campaigning on suicide prevention. If I'll keep on going with the history of family of suicide, a family history of suicide, that's also very important, how health professionals are dealing with preventive aspect of suicide. So there is a whole lot of examples and information and protocols already established, how people who are the vulnerable people, where we can intervene on the preventive aspect.
Et ma deuxième partie de ma question, j'ai demandé où est-ce qu'une personne peut trouver de l'aide? Est-ce que il a mentionné, l'honorable ministre a mentionné un hotline. Quand est-ce que le hotline sera mis sur pied pour qu'il puisse avoir des professionnels en psychologie pour écouter ces personnes-là sur une base 24/7?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Already there is a hotline, that is the public suicide hotline, 188 is functional on a 24/7 basis through the Life Plus unit of my ministry. So there is already a hotline which is functional.
MP Ramphal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. B1334.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Metro Express project is a landmark and unprecedented project in Mauritius, aiming to modernize the public transport system and providing a safe, efficient, sustainable and alternative mode of transport along the busiest traffic corridor of Mauritius. I need to lay emphasis that the Metro Express project should not be gauged solely on financial considerations, inasmuch that the light rail transit system yields high dividends in terms of environmental, social, and economic benefits to the country. The project, therefore, trickles down to several aspects of our lives in terms of improved mobility and value creation. Sir, the project has been conceived in such a manner to upgrade and regenerate the urban setup while also integrating with other modes of transport for seamless international intermodal transfers. The project also allowed the enhancement of signaling facilities at railroad junctions and generally improved the road infrastructure nearby the presence of the light rail stations in order to enhance accessibility and connectivity to transport services.
With this in mind, sir, the House would appreciate that the financial assistance graciously extended by the Republic of India has been a game changer, as it allowed government to secure the necessary funding and equity contribution to go ahead with the implementation of the project. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the House is already aware, the Metro Express project is being executed in phases. Accordingly, with regard to part A of the question, I'm informed that the funds disbursed as at date to the engineering, procurement and construction contractor Larsen & Toubro for the implementation of the project as at date are as follows. Phases 1 and 2, Portwist to Rosehill and Portwist to Cupid, 18.8 billion Mauritian rupees. Phase 3, Rosehill to Eben, 4.55 billion Mauritian rupees. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Metro Express project also heralds opportunities for public-private partnerships to create a win-win situation and for further enhancing accessibility of commuters to the light rail stations. To that end, the construction of an additional light rail station at Phoenix Mall was entirely met by Ascensia Limited, an amount of 198 million Mauritian rupees has been paid to that effect. Sir, besides payment made to the contractor, a fee of 4% of the total project cost amounting to 934 million rupees was to be paid in respect of project management consultancy to Rights Limited for phase 1 to 3. I'm also informed that as a date, an amount of 25 million rupees out of the 934 million rupees is due to be paid to Rights Limited. The Singapore Corporation Enterprise, the SCE, was involved in the feasibility studies for the Metro Express project and was paid an amount of 135 million rupees for the provision of delivery support and advisory services. It is to be highlighted that the services of Rights Limited and SCE were required to successfully steer the execution of this unprecedented undertaking, which is a very complex project involving several subsystems. With regard to part B of the question, sir, loans totaling to 1.1 billion Mauritian rupees have been extended by the government to the Metro Express Limited in various tranches as from financial year 2019 to 2020. Provision has also been made to earmark an amount of 90 million rupees as loan to MEL during this financial year 2023 to 2024. However, as at date, no amount has been disbursed from the said loan of 90 million rupees yet. Mr. Speaker, sir, the loans are meant to assist MEL in meeting its operational costs due to the project being executed in phases, implying lesser ridership in the initial phase as the light rail was operational over a limited stretch at that time. Moreover, with the onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic, whereby transport operators were badly stricken in terms of reduction in the number of passengers due to travel restrictions, MEL had to avail loans from the government to cater for the operational expenditures, which are much higher than those of other transport operators due to the complex nature of the light rail operations. Sir, as regards to part C of the question, I'm informed that the Republic of India provided a line of credit to the Exim Bank of India in respect of the Metro Express project as follows: phases 1 and 2, 260 USD, phases 3, 80 million USD. Both lines of credit carry an interest of 1.8% and involve a moratorium period of 7 years from the initial disbursement. Mr. Speaker, sir, I need to point out that in addition to the line of credit, the Government of India has also provided grant funding for the project to the tune of 267 million USD for phases 1 and 2 and 10 million USD for phase 3. The grant funding has been used as equity contribution from the Government of Mauritius to the project. Mr. Speaker, sir, with respect to part D of the PQ, I have to inform the House that the Metro Express project has been completed within the estimated project cost, that is 18.8 billion Mauritian rupees for phases 1 and 2 from Portwist to Cupid, and 4.55 Mauritian rupees for phase 3 from Rosehill to Rétuis. Mr. Speaker, sir, this type of the state-of-the-art mega infrastructural project is unique in the Indian Ocean, and its accomplishment says it all. I would like to seize this opportunity to express our gratitude to all the governmental bodies, ministries, authorities, MEL, the consultant and the contractor, L&T for their hard work and commitment in delivering this project to the citizens of our country. And our heartfelt appreciation should also be lavishly extended to the Honourable Prime Minister for his undisputed leadership in driving this project from the start, and Honourable Modi ji and the Government of India for their generosity, which have been instrumental in the materializing of this iconic project.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, with regards to phase 4 of the project from Côte d'Or to Réduit, I know that that particular phase has been put on hold given the fact that there is a legal dispute in India with one of the contractors. Can we know if there is any development in that respect, the starting date of the project and the completion date?
Although this question does not strictly pertain to phase 4 of the project, Mr. Speaker, sir, I will just reply to inform the House that in fact consideration was being given to extend the light rail corridor towards Saint-Pierre and Côte d'Or, following the conduct of a feasibility study based on a list of premises, namely integrated developments, both public and private, in the region where the light rail would pass. But in view of the fact that the planned developments, Mr. Speaker, sir, are at the early stages, and there is a slow uptake of private projects in the regions of Moka, Saint-Pierre and Côte d'Or, the extension of the light rail alignment towards Saint-Pierre and Côte d'Or has been deferred.
With regards to the loans that
Yes, but with regard to the insinuation or allegation made about legal case, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no legal case.
Next question.
B 1335. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking had in its report recommended, among others, the setting up of a central database connecting all importers, distributors, and pharmacists so that all transactions relating to the controlled drugs listed under Schedule 1, narcotics, Schedule 3, psychotropic drugs, and Schedule 4, precursors of the Dangerous Drug Act 2000 be recorded upon the instructions of the Pharmacy Board. In this respect, my ministry, in collaboration with the Mauritius Revenue Authority, after consultation with different stakeholders, including retail pharmacists, wholesale pharmacists, importers of chemicals, private clinics, among others, has developed a web-based application for the proper control of precursors and dangerous drugs. Mr. Speaker, sir, accordingly, on 23rd March 2022, the electronic drug register for the control of dangerous drugs was officially launched, marking a significant milestone in our effort to combat the illicit trade of these substances. This online drug register provides a robust platform for all parties involved, including importers, manufacturers, exporters, wholesalers, retailers, and other stakeholders, to seamlessly record and track transactions from the moment of importation right through to sale to the general public. This encompasses products involved in remanufacturing and importation. This platform offers a number of benefits, including the ability to track end-to-end transactions across the whole supply chain, including products involved in remanufacture and exportation, embedded risk management capabilities to aid enforcement agencies such as the Pharmacy Board, Customs, and Police to effectively and efficiently track sales and inventories, improve visibility and control over the supply chain of precursor and dangerous drugs, and reduce risk of diversion and illicit trafficking. Mr. Speaker, sir, as from 1st June 2022, the platform for control of dangerous drugs has been implemented in the private sector by my ministry, and since then, the platform has been upgraded and customized to cater for the needs of the users. The control measures will be implemented in the public sector after the implementation of e-health. This platform is now being tested by private hospitals, and public hospitals will start the testing of the said platform in the coming weeks. Mr. Speaker, sir, moreover, amendments have been brought to the Dangerous Drug Act in the Finance Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2023 for the setting up of an electronic dangerous drugs register for all stakeholders to record all transactions related to controlled drugs. It is noteworthy that access to this platform is restricted, and an authorized body will have access to information pertaining to its field only through a logging system. As such, customs officers will have access only to transactions related to items listed under Schedule 4 precursors only. I'm further informed that the implementation of the platform is progressing well, and I'm confident that it will play a significant role in improving the control of precursor and dangerous drugs in Mauritius. As at date, 243 stakeholders are using this platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, can Honourable Minister inform the House how many of these psychotropic drugs have been seized by the ADSU since 2022? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in 2022, so the drugs called sedatives, tranquilizers, and buprenorphine, so the amount seized by the authorities being 307,566 tablets. So this is the information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, can Honourable Minister also inform the House, will this electronic drug register be made mandatory for the public and health sector as well? Public and private health sector as well?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, already it is being implemented in the private sector, and as I stated in my reply, it will be implemented in the public sector once we will be implementing the e-health. So that will be coming in the next 1.5 years.
Next question.
B 1336.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Road Development Authority is responsible for the construction, care, and maintenance and improvement of motorways and main roads. In this respect, one of its duties is to plan, design, and supervise the construction and reconstruction of bridges and culverts located on the motorways and the main roads. I'm informed by the RDA that there are around 175 bridges and some 500 box culverts under its purview. Mr. Speaker, sir, under the National Flood Management Program, a series of these bridges are being upgraded to cater for a 100 years design life and hydraulic capacity to ensure that they withstand flooding owing to climate change. Regarding part A and B of the questions, I'm informed that the total amount disbursed as from the year 2020 for the reconstruction of bridges and culverts for both purposes of addressing structural deficiencies and hydraulic capacity is 574.4 million in respect of the following. Firstly, 23 bridges and culverts which have already been reconstructed for a total amount of 439.9 million, and 7 ongoing projects for a total amount of 134.5 million. I'm further informed, Mr. Speaker, sir, that following regular assessment of the structural integrity of the bridges, which the RDA carries out on one hand, and taking into consideration the need for the upgrading bridges and culverts for 100 years design, on the other hand, 14 other projects for a total amount of 791.8 million are proposed to be constructed in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, may I ask the Honourable Minister, he mentioned in his reply about 175 bridges, and I note that only 44 have been or are being reconstructed or upgraded. Can he explain this considerable gap?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the state of all bridges and culverts are regularly being monitored. The rehabilitation of bridges depends on the overall state of the bridge and is measured by the overall bridge index. Bridges are high overall bridge index, that is high defects, are prioritized to be rehabilitated, reconstructed, and are among those 44 bridges. Other bridges with low overall bridge index, that is low or no defects, do not need any rehabilitation works.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, some of the bridges date back to colonial times. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether any measures are being taken by his ministry to preserve those bridges?
Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a challenge that we are having at this current time with, in the face of climate change. One, keeping those bridges, and at the same time trying to have sufficient hydraulic capacity. One of the examples that we are facing currently is, for example, at the Four-Pier Bridge, which is an old bridge that we are trying to preserve, and this has caused quite some delay in the project. But nevertheless, we have done what it entails to preserve. The state of all bridges and culverts, including those which date back colonial times, are nevertheless regularly being monitored. The rehabilitation of bridges, once again, it depends on the overall bridge index. Bridges with high overall bridge index are again prioritized. So we are in fact dealing with those bridges, preserving them. Another example is in our own constituency, Cavendish Bridge, which we have renovated and is now in perfect condition. Thank you.
Honourable members, the following questions have been withdrawn. B 1337, B 1341, B 1351, B 1357, B 1359, B 1368, B 1372, B 1379, B 1340, B 1346, B 1354, B 1358, B 1367, B 1371, B 1374. Honourable members, at this stage, suspend the sitting for an hour and a half. Please be seated. MP Omia?
B1338, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Relocation of methadone dispensing. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. Mr. Speaker, sir, in following government's approval, my ministry has initiated action to conduct a survey on the determinants and consequences of abortion in Mauritius. Abortion is a significant health concern. According to the WHO, about 210 million pregnancies occur annually, with roughly 130 million live births, and a third ending in miscarriage, stillbirth, or induced abortion. Among the estimated 42 million abortions each year, nearly 20 million are unsafe, causing around 47,000 maternal deaths, representing 13% of all pregnancy-related deaths. Accurately defining and tracking unsafe and induced abortions is crucial for monitoring progress in women's reproductive health. The National Policy on Sexual and Reproductive Health 2022-2027, prepared and launched by my ministry last year, highlights concerns regarding abortion. These include unsafe abortions causing complications, inadequate reporting of induced abortion cases, and lack of detailed data on different abortion types. The national policy document recommends conducting research to pinpoint triggers of unsafe abortion, including age groups and other relevant factors. Mr. Speaker, sir, the objective of the survey is to find out the key determinants leading to abortion and to assess the consequences thereof, and this would be pursued through the following specific objectives: determine the factors leading to abortion among females of reproductive age, determine the extent of illegal and unsafe abortion along with the reasons behind it, assess the knowledge, perceptions and attitudes on abortion, assess the consequences of abortion in regard to health and socio-economic aspects, and capture data for possible trend analysis. The study will focus on a target population comprising a sample of at least 30 females who experienced spontaneous or induced abortion in 2022 and sought treatment for abortion-related complications with the public health care sector. This study will involve interviewing the female participants after the consent as per a prepared questionnaire, which will cover the following: knowledge on abortion, determinants of abortion, types of abortion, magnitude of illegal abortion, short and long-term consequences of abortion, and access to health care service. Mr. Speaker, sir, I further wish to inform the House that many potential gains are expected from this study, namely identifying the trend of known factors and consequences of abortion in Mauritius, as well as determining the magnitude of new elements related to abortions, designing comprehensive recommendations to improve strategies to reduce the detrimental effects of unsafe abortion on an individual, family and society at large, and minimizing the financial burden associated with complications arising from unsafe abortions, contributing to a more cost-effective healthcare system in line with the vision of this government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister mentioned key determinants, rightly so. And one of the most sought after abortifacient drugs, particularly misoprostol, which I understand is used and licensed in this country for gastritis. Will the Minister, in the light of looking how to diminish illegal termination of pregnancy, ensure that this medication becomes a controlled drug under the appropriate schedules, since its use is solely for its side effect rather than its medicinal purpose?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I agree with the honourable member. Now, I believe after the study, we will come to know more about the determinants of abortion and the medication that's used, and whatever would be the recommendations of the study, I believe there one way of controlling the use of this medication is through imposing some kind of restriction, and will follow whatever will be the recommendation after the study. Yes, I think that is correct.
Thank you. You also mentioned in your answer a questionnaire will be provided to all participants of the survey. May I ask you whether it would be feasible that this questionnaire contains information as to access of those habitual practitioners who indulge into criminal abortion and access of pharmacies that illegally bring by backdoor abortifacient drugs, and once you have the information, firm action is taken by your ministry to ensure that they are taken to task. Thank you.
Yes, I think that this is also correct, that we have, if this medication is being prescribed by medical practitioner or by pharmacists delivering this medication, so there should be some kind of mechanism, because we have seen in the past how many women have lost their lives of self-induced, and I think that would be somehow we have to control the medication and take to task whether it is the practitioners or the pharmacy who is involved in selling these medication. I believe this is correct, and we also have to put a lot of emphasis on and informing the public at large, especially young women, what is going to be the consequences of inducing abortion through medication or through any other means, so that we will be able to address the issue of abortion correctly.
Next question. B1339.
I'm informed that there are currently 3 assistant instructors/instructors in permanent and pensionable employment at the Training and Employment of Disabled Persons Board, TEDPB, namely Mrs. B, Mrs. P, and Mrs. S. At the very outset, I wish to inform the House that the 3 persons were employed on a contractual basis prior to being offered employment on a permanent and pensionable basis. All the 3 instructors joined on contract at different periods of time with different salaries. In 2010, the TEDPB decided to advertise for the post of assistant instructors on a permanent and pensionable basis. Mrs. P was selected as she was the only candidate possessing the required qualification, that is, a school certificate, and like Mrs. B and Mrs. S, who did not have a school certificate. Mrs. P assumed duty as assistant instructor on a permanent and pensionable basis on 30th September 2010 with a basic salary of $9,400 instead of $7,825, which she was deriving on contract. I'm further informed that as at date, Mrs. P is drawing a basic salary of $23,025. I have been further informed subsequently in March 2014, on the recommendation of Cabinet, the scheme of service was amended. A first intake note was inserted in the second internal advertisement so that persons who have been performing the duties of assistant instructor at the TEDPB for a period of at least 10 years could be considered for the post, although they did not possess the required qualifications. Consequently, on 19th November 2014, the board decided to appoint Mrs. B and Mrs. S on establishment and to continue paying them the salary they were drawing at the material time instead of 12,000 rupees 175 as per POB report 2013. The salaries of Mrs. B and Mrs. S were at that material time 17,380 and 13,130 respectively. With regards to part B of the question, I'm informed that my ministry had a meeting with the Minister of Public Service, Administrative and Institutional Reform on 11th October 2023. It was proposed to align the salaries of Mrs. B and Mrs. S with that of Mrs. B. On 16th October 2023, the Conciliation and Mediation section of the Ministry of Labour was informed of the proposal to align the salaries. However, on 19th October 2023, Mrs. P and Mrs. S has made more and new proposals to the Ministry in the Conciliation and Mediation meeting of the Ministry of Labour. So these new proposals are under consideration, so the next meeting has been fixed to the 7th November this year.
May I know from the Honourable Minister, today, what is the actual salary of Mrs. B and what is the actual salary of Mrs. B?
Mrs. B is earning 31,525 and Mrs. P, you mentioned? Yeah, 23,025.
So Mrs. P, according to your own answer, is more senior. She has joined establishments in 2010. She's the only one who had the required qualification, and she's earning significantly less than Mrs. B. She's earning only 23,000 instead of 21,000. May I know from the Honourable Minister, why is that the case?
Yeah, well, I tend to say that in November 2014, the board of TED-PB took the decision to maintain the salaries of P and Mrs. S instead of giving them the salary of 12,175 as per the salary scale of the POB report 2013. So we are in the mess because of the decision that has been taken at that particular time, and we are at the level of the ministry, we are taking positive steps to resolve the issue, but you will agree with me, it is taking time because we have to get to the bottom of the issue to be able to clear the whole mess.
Last question. Will the ministry consider backdating the pay to if ever there is an alignment of all the salary as it should be between all the members performing the same task of assistant, instructor, and instructor?
Well, this does not rest on whether I am agreeable or not. So there is a committee which is looking into the whole issue. As I have said, we are having meetings with the Ministry of Labour, Ministry of Public Service, my ministry and SLO, so let them come to the proper conclusions. We have to wait for their conclusions. We would have put an end to the whole mess, but unfortunately, Mrs. P has made further recommendations, so we have to take into consideration her recommendations, look into all the recommendations carefully, analyze all the recommendations. So I leave it to the committee to decide.
Next question.
1342. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that the incident pertaining to the case of baby GC, aged 3 months, at Princess Barbie Child Daycare Center in Stanley, Roselle, had been reported to my ministry by the police department on the 2nd of October this year. I am further informed that the Princess Barbie Child Daycare Center was operating illegally and was not known to my ministry at that point in time. The police inquiry on this case is still ongoing. As regards part B of the question, Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry provided for psychological support to the bereaved family, and the illegal child daycare center has been closed down.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Cela fera bientôt 48 mois que la ministre est en poste. Seulement 175 garderies ont été enregistrées. À ce rythme, il faudra attendre 2 ou 3 décennies pour régulariser toutes les crèches dans notre pays. Monsieur le Président, selon mes informations, le ministère a convoqué les parents du nourrisson le 17 octobre 2023, soit 15 jours après le décès de leur enfant. C'est très regrettable de constater le manque d'humanité envers des parents. Je suis sûre que vous êtes très sensible. Un nourrisson a perdu la vie, Monsieur le Président.
This is not the point. The point is question time. Supplementary question should be specific and straightforward. You look for information.
Très bien. Alors, Monsieur le Président, la ministre peut-elle informer la Chambre si elle estime acceptable ce délai de 15 jours après le décès?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the PQ is a very specific PQ regarding the circumstances, the illegal operation of that daycare center, and the measures taken pending completion of the inquiry. I have answered to both Part A and Part B of the question. Should the Honourable Member wish to bring a specific question about the parents, she is most welcome to do so.
A specific question, no statement.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
I like your smile.
Thank you. La ministre vient tout juste de nous informer que la famille aurait reçu des services d'une psychologue. Alors, selon mes renseignements, la psychologue aurait dit aux parents « Pénant solution miracle, business laisse les temps suivre ce cours, et si, dans 3 mois, situation pas améliorée, prends contact au ministère. » La ministre est-elle d'accord? Oui, I'm quoting. La ministre est-elle d'accord avec le fait qu'aucun service de soutien psychologique ait été proposé aux parents après un tel traumatisme, juste après l'incident?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would really like the Honourable Member to table what she has just quoted from. And I also wish to inform the House, Mr. Speaker, sir, that let's not make mistake about this. The safety of our children remains a prime concern of this government and my ministry. And to ensure that quality services are being offered to our children across the child daycare centres, this government, my ministry, has introduced the child daycare centre regulations. We are talking about...
What is happening? You may continue.
Yes. Those child daycare centre regulations are being implemented since January 2022. Whenever there are cases of ill treatment of children in our child daycare centres, Mr. Speaker, sir, whenever these are reported, the assistance of the police is also sought to conduct an inquiry. I also wish to point out to the House that there is a multifaceted strategy that has been put in place to ensure the safety of our children in those centres. There are the officers of my ministry, as well as the officers of the Social Welfare Division, together with the police, together with the Ombudsperson Office, the Office of the Ombudsperson for Children. We are conducting operations to track down those child daycare centres that are operating illegally. To keep the population informed, there is a list, an updated list of registered and deregistered child daycare centres on the website of my ministry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I refer the Honourable Member to the statement I made in Parliament regarding the situation of child daycare centres last week in the House. I refer her back to the statement. Enrolling a child, Mr. Speaker, sir, in a crèche is not just a question of adhering to the regulations I am speaking about. It is a testament to the commitment of the child's well-being. So I, again, take the opportunity to urge parents to check whether the child daycare center that they're enrolling their child in is in fact registered and compliant to the regulation, the child daycare regulations of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, B1343.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Youth Civic Service, NYCS, is a 12-week-long program that was announced in the 2018-2019 budget speech and was launched by my ministry in 2019 in collaboration with the Human Resource Development Council, HRDC, with the objective to empower our youth. The NYCS program was introduced in Rodrigues in 2020. In the financial year 2022-2023, several activities were held in the context of the NYCS program. First, in order to make the NYCS program more familiar to our youth in Rodrigues, the 9 modules have been reviewed and have been adapted to the Rodriguan context. Second, 50 young people enrolled themselves in the NYCS program from July to November 2022. All successful participants have been paid a stipend of 5,000 rupees each. Third, a 2-day training session was held in May 2023 at Citron de Nice Youth Center to equip 13 youth cadres from the Youth Commission of Rodrigues and educators with the necessary skills to work with youth with disabilities. In that same month, 40 trainers and resource persons, together with the staff of the Commission for Youth of Rodrigues, attended a 2-day training course whose aim was to provide the attendees with the required skills to better engage with millennials. Fourth, a certificate presentation ceremony was held in May 2023 at Montplaisir in favor of the aforementioned 50 NYCS beneficiaries, the 13 youth cadres and educators, and 40 trainers and resource persons. Mr. Speaker, sir, in respect of the financial year, of this financial year, I wish to inform the House that, first, we are targeting no less than 125 young Rodriguans to get enrolled in the NYCS program. This includes 40 youngsters from the technical school known as Atelier du Savoir in Malabar, 15 youth with disabilities, 45 unemployed youth, and 25 athletes. The expected start dates for the aforementioned cohorts is as follows. 1. Atelier du Savoir, December 2023. 2. Youth with disabilities, February 2024. And 3. Unemployed youth and athletes, April 2024. It should be noted that the cohort of 40 young Rodriguans who completed the NYCS program in August 2023 will be paid their stipends by the end of November 2023. Second, several capacity building sessions and workshops are scheduled as follows. 1. In December of this year, meetings will be held with stakeholders in Rodrigues for the implementation of NYCS programs to favor youth with disabilities and with sports coaches in view of enrolling our athletes. Working sessions will also be conducted with the police to include substance abuse prevention and road safety in the National Youth Civic Service program. In February 2024, in collaboration with the French Embassy, 15 creative coaches and resource persons will be trained in acculturation numérique. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can I ask the Honourable Minister what his ministry is doing in terms of marketing so as to reach a maximum amount of youth in Rodrigues to this program?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is important that the youth from Rodrigues become aware of this program And as such, there are, with the Commission for Youth in Rodrigues, there are several communiques that will pass on radio, on the MBC News, Facebook pages. We will work in straight collaboration with the Rodrigue Regional Youth Council, also through the networks in different youth centers in Rodrigues. And I know also that in Rodrigues, the youth leaders, they have a WhatsApp group, so there will be messages forwarded to them. Posters also will be placed in youth-friendly places. And of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rely on both Honorable Leopold and Honorable François to disseminate information in Rodrigues in favor of young Rodriguans.
Next question.
B1344.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Creole Mauricien was introduced in grade 10 as an optional subject in academic year 2021-2022 for students who sat for KM as an optional core subject for the National Certificate of Education. This year, the first cohort of candidates, comprising 182 students, is sitting for Creole Mauricien assessment papers conducted by the National Examination Board. This end-of-cycle assessment will lead to a national school certificate in KM awarded by the University of Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, tremendous efforts were made to ensure that students pursue their studies in KM. These efforts have culminated into the current sitting of KM as a historic first at the national school certificate level, and successful candidates will be awarded a school certificate in KM pitched at level 3 of the National Qualification Framework. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's important to highlight that this progress and achievement in KM certification has been a long road which has been carefully planned and prepared for the successful outcome of the National School Certificate in KM. The MIE and the University of Mauritius have worked on the development of the curriculum, educational resources, and textbooks. My ministry has set up a technical committee comprising representatives of my ministry, the University of Mauritius, the Mauritius Institute of Education, the Mauritius Examination Syndicate, and the National Examination Board to assess our readiness for the introduction of KM in the first place at advanced subsidiary level and subsequently at advanced level. Mr. Speaker, sir, the availability of an adequate number of educators to teach the subject at grade 12 remains an imperative. Mr. Speaker, sir, the introduction of KM at grade 12, advanced subsidiary level, is envisaged, but we have to first build up experience at the school certificate level and carefully evaluate the performance of students. We are only at the first sitting of the National School Certificate in KM this year. We must engage in a thorough evaluation and monitoring of this assessment, gauge the performance of students, and ensure that we put in place the building blocks for a successful growth towards the introduction of KM at AS and subsequently at AL level. Curriculum development is being effected at the level of the MIE and the University of Mauritius. The training of an adequate number of educators to teach KM at grade 12 level remains another important aspect that needs our attention. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm confident that the House will understand that it is only through a careful planning and capacity building that we would be able to move confidently ahead.
Monsieur le Président, le créole mauricien a été introduit en grade 1 depuis 2012, soit 11 ans de cela. Gouverner, c'est prévoir. La ministre ne pense-t-elle pas qu'il était prévisible que les étudiants allaient prendre le créole mauricien comme matière principale dans les prochains examens de la HSI?
Monsieur le Président, nous savons que nous avons affaire là à des jeunes et nous sommes en train de parler des examens. Il nous faut vraiment assurer que l'évaluation est du niveau requis et c'est pour cela que nous sommes en train de tread cautiously et nous voulons qu'une fois terminés, ces examens ont le niveau qu'il faut et ont bien sûr la reconnaissance que nous voulons pour les élèves ayant pris ces sujets au niveau de la School Certificate, tout comme plus tard au niveau du High School Certificate. Nous avons fait un gros travail. Nous savons qu'on a eu plusieurs difficultés au cours des années, mais nous avons fait de sorte à ce que le sujet puisse être introduit au niveau du School Certificate, et nous avons même été au-delà de cela en mettant sur pied le National Examination Board.
La ministre pourrait-elle affirmer quand exactement est-ce que les étudiants pourront prendre cette matière comme sujet principal au niveau HSC?
Monsieur le Président, je viens d'expliquer qu'il y a un travail qui se fait. Il y a un travail qui se fait au niveau du comité. Ils sont en train de travailler sur le curriculum. Il va devoir aussi venir avec suffisamment de littérature au niveau du créole mauricien dans le standardized form de la langue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, B1345.
Order. Order. Deputy Prime Minister.
May I, Mr. Speaker? Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards Part A of the question, I wish to inform the House that based on figures compiled by Statistics Mauritius, 901,126 tourists visited Mauritius from 1 January to 30 September 2023, compared to 638,332 tourists during the corresponding period in 2022. In other words, we've moved approximately from 638,000 in 2022 to 901,000 in 2023. Insofar as quote-unquote leading markets are concerned, and I understand that the Honourable Member is here referring to markets which generated the highest number of tourists, for the period January to September 2023, the figures rounded up are as follows. France, approximately 211,000. This is metropolitan France. The United Kingdom, 101,000. Réunion Island, 94,000. Germany, 81,000. South Africa, 73,000. And India, 41,000. Now, these are rounded up figures. And these 6 markets, France, UK, Réunion, Germany, South Africa, and India, taken together account for 2/3 of tourist arrivals. And from the relevant period in 2022 to 2023, we have noted a progression in all 6 markets. With respect to the Part B of the question, I'm informed that latest available figures relating to tourism earnings published by the Bank of Mauritius concern August 2023. Accordingly, I can give the figures from January to August. January to August 2023, tourism earnings amount to 54.7 billion rupees compared to 36.3 billion rupees during the same period in 2022. Now, taking account of inflation, this represents an increase of 36% compared to the same period in 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, allow me to congratulate the Minister and the stakeholders who've worked together for this good performance. Having said so, Mr. Speaker, sir, may we know from the Minister, we have 3 months ahead, October, November, and December, which are considered as being peak period for the tourism industry. May we know from the Minister what is the total expected arrivals for these 3 upcoming months?
That is a very good question, Mr. Speaker, sir, but I don't I don't attempt to predict the future. The October figures should be out pretty soon, and we've had a very good month of October, roughly approximately 100,000 tourists. And if we go by the booking trends for the next 2 months, we will have an excellent period of November, December, which is our high season. We've already, from my reckoning, crossed the 1 million threshold for 2023, so the figures will be significantly higher than 1 million this year. I'm afraid that's all I can do for today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. From the reply provided by the Honourable Minister, the leading markets, the 6 countries are performing quite well. May we know from the Minister what is the strategy of his ministry to tap other promising markets? Thank you.